Hi, I'm Dan Kroll, and this is some footage I shot while diving in the dry tortugas, courtesy of the MV Spree, which, by the way, is one of the nicest dive operations I've ever experienced. If you haven't been out with them, you gotta check them out. Looking at these images, you may not consider the conditions to be all that bad for shooting underwater video. And though that may be true, the conditions are less than optimal for capturing really great footage. It was pretty hazy and there was a lot of particulate matter in the water, which can play havoc when it comes to capturing good underwater video. But what the conditions were perfect for was to test the limits of these new large sensor cameras, Sony's FS100 and Sony's FS700, along with their respective Amphibico underwater housings. The footage in this video is footage I shot while performing tests to manually white balance these cameras at depth. It was shot on reefs ranging in depth from around 55 to 85 feet deep. The tests I performed was to white balance at depth while using a white card and by pointing the camera toward the sun. What I found was for the best results in water deeper than 30 to 40 feet was to use a red filter. The filter I used was one I removed from an older Amphibico housing and retrofit to a Sony E-mount 10 to 18 millimeter lens. In addition, I found that whether you are in shallow water with or without a filter, or in deeper water with or without a filter, for best results, be sure that when you do a manual white balance, you achieve a value of something less than 15K. By doing so, you will know you're not out of range for the camera's ability to perform a proper white balance. Keeping in mind that even with a red filter, you may have to go as shallow as 15 to 20 feet deep to achieve these results depending on the conditions and time of day. Both cameras have a peak white balance level of 15K, but unlike other cameras that you might be used to, that would give you an error message if the ability to white balance was out of range, these cameras will white balance out of range but simply display the peak level of 15K, resulting in less than desirable results. All of the reef footage has been graded to some extent because of the conditions being less than optimal, but also to show the results of what the cameras are capable of producing, even if you don't get it perfectly right in the camera or conditions are not the best. At this site, you can see just how dismal the conditions were. There was a heavy green layer just overhead, but even so, I was able to white balance at a depth of around 65 feet. And none of this footage was graded. It was dark, so the gain was set to 12 dB, but all in all, I was amazed at how much color information was captured. The red of the diver's surface marker buoy, the blue of his fins, and the yellow buttons on his inflator are all the color they should be. Normally, a shot like this would result in the red stripes being more of a brown at best, but here you can see that the stripes on this flag are clearly red. I found the FS100 and 700 seemed to share the same white balance circuitry and perform nearly identically, and both cameras produce spectacular images. The footage shot on the FS700 was shot on a different reef than the footage shot on the FS100, so it makes it difficult to do a true side-by-side comparison. But the FS700 does seem to handle the hazy conditions a little bit better than the 100. Regardless, both cameras perform better capturing color at depth than any of my previously owned systems, but both cameras can be a bit more challenging than what you may be used to. For those of you who are used to the legacy one-piece smaller sensor video cameras, the learning curve is not necessarily steep, but is different and will take some time for you to figure out how to get the results you may be looking to achieve. Also, many of the legacy cameras that you may be used to or have previously owned in the past may have had features such as picture profiles that you may have viewed as nothing more than a novelty. I can assure you they have always been, and are even more so now, serious tools to get the most out of your camera, and I suggest strongly that you look into those features. As for the FS100 and the FS700 for shooting underwater, both cameras produce stunning HD imagery and operate nearly identically to one another, except of course for the additional features that the FS700 offers over the FS100. So if you don't have a need for super slow motion or are not interested in 4K down the road, the FS100 is a great camera choice. And though both cameras produce great pictures, I will give the FS700's HD image a slight edge over the FS100, being that the FS700's HD image is being captured via a 4K sensor. Well, I hope this presentation was helpful, and I hope to share more in the near future. Thanks for watching.